I don't know.
Well, then it gets back to the idea of an artificial construct such as money. So we're slaves to time, and then we're slaves to this money, which has the pyramid,
which is intimately connected to time.
Right. So we're buying time on the planet when everything should be free, including energy.
Absolutely, and it will be very soon. And when this gets going, I don't think people realize that the implications of this whole thing. I mean, it is concentrated chi can do anything, and so once this gets going, it's got to reach there's a curve, and we're only at the very, very start of the curve. We've got a long way to go, and at the very end of this thing, it may be a Lord of the Rings. It may be we have to storm the Citadel of Sauron or something.
Right.
I'm serious. Once we get our chi back, then we may discover that there is some kind of darkness out there that actually has to be stopped in some way. But there's no way in the world that we could stop it in our present weakened conditions.
Right. We have been brought down to the lowest common denominator. Yep. And dumbed down, and our level of energy and awareness is practically nil. So
exactly, and that's done all on purpose.
Yeah,
so you will never rebel against the monochronic structure you're stuck in.
Right.
Because once you get out of the monochronic structure, and you're no longer working 9 to 5 and all that, you begin to start thinking some very dangerous thoughts. And I think they don't want you thinking those thoughts.
Well, the people that do that now, they're calling terrorists.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, they seem to be trying to cover that base.
Yeah, well, next will be alchemists, will be terrorists. You'll see.
Oh, yeah. And then what about all the X-ray? It seems like there's a lot going on with atomics right now, with the X-ray machines and the scatter guns and the... they have X-ray machines that run in the cars that can drive by, and the Pentagon and all these various dark agencies have gone insane with the enemy and what they want to develop in terms of bionics and nanotechnology, and I mean it's like your worst nightmare.
If we knew. Actually, what was really being developed at DARPA, we probably would all want to leave the planet.
Yeah.
I was doing a lecture in 2009 in D.C., and after the lecture got over, a woman came up to me, and she said, "Hi, I really enjoyed your lecture, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I work for the DOD." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, and I'll tell you, if I told you what we're developing... you wouldn't believe it." And I went, "Don't tell me. I don't want to hear."
Right. Well, we get little clues from the movies.
We do.
They throw us a bone or two through the movie industry.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's completely controlled by them anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and apparently they're developing super soldiers that are genetically developed, that are like 6'9" and have 5-foot shoulder spans and can carry 200-pound guns and run at 30 miles an hour and they have. I've heard the same thing, and they're developing the ability to control objects en masse from a distance. And what I heard is that they're controlling objects as a group, and they're trying to control them individually. So it's a matter of time before they can do that, and they might be doing it now for all we know. Well, they probably are. Every 10 years they gain 100 years on us. Yeah, right. And they've been doing this since the 40s. Right. So you can start adding up how far along they are. They're really far, man. I was talking to Cliff High today. Oh. And he was telling me about how much money they've dumped into CERN. And, literally an endless amount of money in a time of economic shortage and problems. So it makes you wonder what CERN is really about and what they're really doing there. Why do they have a statue of Shiva up front, who's the Lord of Time? Oh. Nothing is as it seems. No, not really.
Sure. That's for sure. And then what about the second space program? I was just doing some research on that, and you've come up with a lot of this information yourself, that there's a second space program, and the astronauts were not taken up on one of those tin buckets that would have been demolished on the way to the moon. They were transported when they did go, if they did go, via the saucer technology that they have.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then the rest of them were faked by Stanley Kubrick.
Well, they're all faked by Kubrick, but they really went. And there really are reflectors on the moon and seismometers and things like that.
Technology.
Well, I mean, there's a dome on the moon, about a 3-mile wide dome. You can go look at it.
Yeah.
Just Google in Clementine Aristarchus crater. Aristarchus crater, Clementine, Blue Dome. And you'll see 2 pictures taken by the Clementine Pentagon mission, 1994, of Aristarchus. And then an amateur astronomer has also taken a picture of it. It's clearly a structure. It clearly has symmetry. It's clearly blue. And that's all fine and dandy. Yeah, maybe, the Nazis built it or the U.S. military built it. The only problem with all that is that there's reports going back all the way back to the very beginning of the invention of the telescope. All the great astronomers wrote down that they reported seeing a lot of activity at the Aristarchus crater, including moving objects and lights and flashes. And when Apollo went to the moon, and I went through the images, I was, wanted to find out if there was something at Aristarchus, right? Yeah. And so I went through because of the reports of all the activity there through 400 years, and I went through, and there was it was all bleached out. Every time you looked at the Aristarchus crater from NASA photographs, it was just all albedo and white, and you couldn't really see anything. Yeah. And then along comes Clementine, and they clicked 2 pictures of a clearly intelligently built structure on the moon, photographed by the U.S. military almost 20 years ago.
Well, that's not. It's not all that surprising anymore, given the idea that the technology is so advanced and so concealed that there are bases on Mars, and probably there are things going on Jupiter and Saturn as well, with those engineered rings that are some of them finished.
Well, that's very true, and then you have to ask yourself, what is Saturn? And is it a planet even? And I'm reaching some rather radical conclusions about all of that, and I'm feeling a little bit unnerved by what I'm finding, and so I'm
me too. Me too.
As Terence McKenna used to say, if you're not scared, you should be.
Right. I sure love Terence McKenna.
Me too. I miss him a lot.
God, what a wonderful spirit. Wow.
Yeah, and Terence looks like maybe he was onto something, because his conclusion about what was going to happen in 2012, which he really never told too many people, was that we were going to find a way to communicate, at least communicate with the future. And that the ultimate goal of technology was to find a way to communicate with the future and contact them. And so he said that what he thought might happen, and I think this is like his greatest idea, and he never really talked too much about it in his talks. There are a few talks, though. Is that once you connect with the future, say 1,000 years from now, you contact somebody 1,000 years from now, and they start talking to you, right?
Right.
Okay, then all of a sudden, all the technology, all the knowledge, everything that's there 1,000 years from now is here.
Right.
Instantly. The entire future happens almost instantly. Take about a year to unravel. And that may be what they're doing at CERN.
Well, I would take it a step further and say they've already done it.
Yeah, they may have.
The future has already been communicated to the past, which is why things...
And they're not telling us.
Yeah, and that would explain how things are manipulated so easily when they know exactly what's going to happen or the possibilities, and they can line them up because everything is kept secret. So,
exactly.
If you send something from the future back to, a secret agency that you know exists, well, then they have the technology and they just build, bigger walls around it. So
you got it.
Yep.
And if you look at, if let's just say that there is a secret space program. It's developed with these Nazi-derived technologies, which might even be associated with off-planet intelligences,
right.
and they got to the moon, and they found something on the moon. They went to the Blue Crater. They went to the Blue Dome.
Yeah.
They went to Aristarchus. That's where I would go. And I would go there. Well, what's going on here at Aristarchus? And they go there, and there's a dome. Maybe nobody's living there anymore. Maybe somebody is.
Yeah.
Either way, you're just going to get your download right then and there.
Oh, right.
And they may have got it as early as 62, 63. They had to have seen the structures when the lunar orbiters started sending their stuff back.
Right.
So, there was some kind of slideshow at the White House that was probably extremely jaw-dropping. Or they already knew it, and they had the technology. They've been going there long before, and that's probably pretty much what I think. So they went there, and they're about 1,000 years ahead of us.
Yeah.
And they're zapping around. When I put on my night vision goggles at night, which I'm going to do tonight, I can see their craft running around.
Oh, yes. A lot of people are documenting that now.
Yep.
And what's going on? Cliff High talks about the sun to some extent, but we know that there's going to be a solar maximum coming up around 2012 or 2013.
Yep.
But there have been various photographs and videos of ships around the sun. I mean, large ships that are almost the size of a planet.
Yep.
What's that all about? Do you think that's some? And there are other kinds of devices that seem to be near the where the EMPs are.
Yeah, well,
they look like little trains. And
I know.
Yeah.
They're coming from. They're coming. I don't know. I don't want to sound too wacky here. They're coming through a portal. In Saturn. At Saturn. That
makes sense. That's a pentagon-shaped thing at the top, for one thing.
Yeah, hexagonal, and it's a time. I think it's a time portal.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that Saturn is at the outer periphery of our time torus, the donut-shaped vortex that creates the fourth dimension or time, and the sun is at the center of it, and I think Saturn is the outside perimeter, and the reason I say that is because in the Kabbalah, the Tiphareth is the sun, of course, which is at the center of the tree of life, and it can be interchanged with Saturn, and so there's this relationship in the Kabbalah, and the Hebrews were Saturn worshipers, which is why their day is on Saturday, and they put a lot of emphasis on time and money and those kinds of things, because those are the things that Saturn is concerned with.
Yes.
And so I think you can see this hexagonal cloud structure on the north pole of Saturn. You have to ask yourself, they took a picture in 1976 and they claimed that it was a lens that caused the hexagonal thing, right? The aperture. Right. And I never bought that one as a photographer. And then they took it again, of course, with Cassini, and here we are 40 years later, almost, 40 years later, and it's still going. The cloud pattern is still moving around the North Pole.